Welcome to Wave Street Studios. Happy March, everybody. Happy almost spring. Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? It's a little warmer outside. A little warmer. My name is Danny, and welcome to Creative Mornings. It's a really, really special gathering today. We have a lot of new faces, which is wonderful. I got to meet a lot of new people this morning, which is great, and also have my whole family here today. So if you have a sticker or multiple stickers on you, that is a result of Isaac. If you have, if you felt a little warmer and sweeter in your heart, that's because of Lila and her general presence, and Leslie we have a 2-week spring break. So that is quite a spring break. That's more than a break. That's like a hiatus. Yeah. Yeah. So we're really excited to have you here. And there's one really, really important announcement that we want to make today. And Mike Buffo is going to come up and join me for it. And we want to call out Judy and Rhett to, are they available? Can we get, there's Rhett. Where's Judy? There's Judy. There's Judy.
Come on up here.
Come on up here, you guys. Yeah. Oh, come on up. We want you in front here. Yeah. And so Mike's going to share the details of the announcement, but I just want to again thank Rhett and Judy for everything they do for Creative Mornings. Over the summer, when Creative Mornings was just an idea and we hadn't even, I think, been officially approved yet, Mike introduced me to Rhett and Judy here, and we basically described what we were doing, and Rhett and Judy said, yes, we will host you. And it was on faith.
So I'm going to talk briefly and then I'm going to hand it over to Rhett. You've all been given this piece of paper in your hand. This is Wave Street's moment. In just a few short days, the Planning Commission is going to be reviewing their application for an alcohol permit. It's something they've been working on for a long time. And the reason why I've been having fun here at Wave Street for a long time, and many members of the public are. And this is an opportunity for even more people to enjoy Wave Street. Their hands have been tied for a long time with this not having an alcohol permit there. That room over there could be, you can imagine what we could do with that room, and the jazz club sensation that this place could be. So I'm going to hand it over to Rhett, and he's going to talk a little bit more about this opportunity.
About how we can help you.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, so really I want to do a email campaign with the Planning Commission, and there's an email on there. It's just to write them. Also, you can go to the meeting on the 26th, but Monterey lacks anything to do after 6 o'clock, right? It's like, so we're not a cover band, we're a recording studio, so we're going to have artists that would play the Freight and Salvage or Yoshi's, or the city will come to us through Wave Street, and we'll be able to serve food via caterers and food trucks, and then serve beer, wine, and cocktails. So we actually have the same license as Pop and Hiss, and it'll be the first one in Monterey. But literally, my kids were 3 and 5 when we made this investment. We waited 19 years to get approval by the Water Management District.
By the way, that's one of his kids.
Yeah, there's my kid. Yeah, my 6'6" son, who's graduated from college and lives away from us. So it's like if you can just imagine how long that is. And so really the recordings we've been doing haven't been, I haven't been able to pay artists, I haven't been able to pay staff. So it's a huge change for Wave Street. And we make our money on private events. So you can come here, drink, have music, do a lot of fun, but it's it's $8,500 on a Saturday to get married here. That's how we survive. So it'd be nice to sell $20 tickets and have music and have the whole community be able to come. So it's a beautiful place for that. Thank you. All right. Yeah.
March 26th.
March 26th. So we'll send out some follow-up information about this. I also wanted us to thank Judy. Like Rhett's very much visible, and but Judy, we get here early, right? Like when Creative Mornings feels early, but Judy's already been setting this place up for 3 or 4 hours sometimes. and it just sort of feels like it happens. And so I want to thank both of them, really, like they make this possible. So thank you guys. Um, and yeah, so we can go to the next slide. Um, we started Creative Mornings over the summer to help do things like this, to bring people together. And we are so excited about how it really works now. We have people who help make it happen, Cassie, Jillian, and a bunch of other volunteers. And it's really, really special just to kind of see it work and to see there was a moment I remember over the summer where we were kind of like, Mike and I were like meeting people one-on-one and introducing them to Creative Mornings, and they thought we were crazy. And they were like, creative what? You know, and now just to kind of have this almost like this rhythm every month where we put the event out, we get 10 or 15 people RSVPing, then we're about 25, then we're about 35, and then we get closer to the event and we get to about 80 or 85. And there's work that goes into it behind the scenes, but it works really, really well, and that's really special. We can go to the next slide. I'm Danny. Okay, great. John, come up here. So something that we've begun doing, we first did it with Michelle, and we've begun doing is just having a co-host, and Sean did it, and with something we're going to continue to do, just to introduce some new voices to the community. And this time we have John. And so I met John and Alora really early on in this journey because they have another kind of critical cultural anchor of Monterey, which is the Pearl Works. And that's a really special place, and people come here because of the Pearl Works, which is wonderful. So John was a natural choice. I do want to, before I hand it over to John, I want to thank one person, actually Tom Russert, who's there. Tom, can you wave? It's worth mentioning that Tom, it was Tom's suggestion to reach out to Rachelle. So I want to thank Tom for that. But then my wife also a day later said, "Why don't you reach out to Rachelle?" So we literally had this conversation where she said to me, "I feel like I deserve the credit for it because she said I didn't know Tom had done that. When I recommended it, I didn't know Tom had recommended it also. So I feel like I deserve some of the credit for recommending." She does. That's a conversation in our home that actually happened. But I'm really excited to hand the mic to John and to facilitate for us today.
You can hand it to me. I have my own. Thank you. Hey everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name's John. I'm a coach, a facilitator, and I love spaces that support the possibility of people. So all of you being here today is like my absolute favorite thing. And as Danny was saying, these spaces can't exist without the sponsors. Some of the sponsors are organizations like Hawk Tower, focusing on investing in Central California. House of 8 Media, doing a lot of the production. You'll see Mike at many events around the area, setting up cameras and making it so spaces can be online and live. We have the Pearl Works co-working space in the heart of Monterey. I'm frequently there at events. And Wave Street Studios, this incredible space. So the theme for this session today is perspective. And what comes up for me is looking out at this audience. Everyone here has a different perspective. You're in a different seat. You were somewhere else earlier today. You were somewhere else 2 weeks ago. You have different childhoods. The perspective you have right now, that point of view, is totally unique. And it's fun to think that when you have a conversation with somebody, there are these two totally dynamic, different experiences that have the chance to change somebody. But that change really can only show up if you're willing to listen. And you may know from having conversations with people who are trying to change their mind, it can be very challenging when you really want something. But if you're willing to listen and pay attention and be present with somebody, there's the chance that you may be able to change yourself. So I really believe that perspective and being willing to consider new perspectives is crucial. So with that, I also would love to do a little bit of a social experiment where if you would be willing to have a conversation with somebody you do not yet know and share about your perspective or what came up for you during this, I would love for you to raise your hand. Some of you raised your hand. It's worth a shot. But notice who did and go talk to them. And with that, oh, actually, I also do want to put in the plug. If you're enjoying these, consider donating, consider being a supporter. Would you be willing to pay for these events? If so, there will be an email later on in this presentation. It takes money, it takes resources to put this together. So please consider how you can be a part of continuing to bring this to Monterey. And with that, I would like to invite our first live vocal performance. Anne Sibley, Julie Capilli, and Beth Vatuone, accompanied by Wendy Kirby.
Thank you so much. So I was willing to do a social experiment about 10 years ago and talk to people I didn't know. And my husband and I traveled around the country with our 2 very young children. And I wrote this song while out on the road. And it was just such a beautiful download that came to me. And we continue to sing it. I get to sing. Oh, you might turn this down just a tiny bit. Yeah, you got it. I continue to get to sing with these beautiful women and with Wendy over here on the piano. And we're going to sing a song I wrote called Come All You Strangers. Oh, we're going to start a cappella. I knew that. Come all you strangers, traveling far into the darkness, come as you are, coming by land now, coming by sea, hearing a calling, come follow me. You've already known this since the day you were born. You're writing your story, just let it unfold and learn how to feel things down deep in your bones. The wind has a way now of bringing us home. Come all you strangers, traveling far into the darkness, come as you are, coming by land now, coming by sea, hearing a calling, come follow me. We're coming together when we're coming apart. Let's pick up the pieces and make a new start. We've been through the worst now, we'll jump through the flames. There's always tomorrow, find joy in today. Come all you strangers, traveling far into the darkness, come as you are, coming by land now, coming by sea, hearing a calling, come follow me. There's no need to name it, we already know. There's no use in fighting, come on, it's time to let go. It's more like surrender, getting down on your knees, finding the river and floating downstream. All right, feel free to sing along if you learned it. Come all you stranger, traveling far into the darkness, into the darkness, come as you are, coming by land now, coming by sea, hearing a calling, come follow me. All right, one more time. You guys sound beautiful. Are you ready? Come all you strangers, traveling far into the darkness, come as you are, coming by land now, coming by sea, hearing a calling, come follow me. Hearing a calling, come follow me. Hearing a calling, come follow me. All right. Thank you so much. Just real quick, and we're so honored, Danny, thank you for having us and everyone. Wendy has a really special concert this Saturday night at her beautiful space here in Monterey. So it's a double launch. I'm going to be there with a musician from London she's going to be playing with, but she's an incredible composer. And then the three of us have a concert April 28th. And then also they will all be with me April 11th for another concert at Hidden Valley. So actually, if you reach under, should we do that now? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you were following me. If you reach under your chair, because there's a few, I think there's just 2 CDs.
Good.
Beth has CDs too. We just forgot to put yours. Sorry. So reach under your chair. You might have a free CD. All right. That's fun. That's fun. That's a good idea. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming up and sharing your gifts, sharing your perspectives, harmonies, all different ways of looking at it. What's next? I believe we have our keynote speaker. Rachelle Escamilla is Monterey's newest poet laureate, and you can read the blurb here about you. And I would love to have you come up and share.
So I'm going to start off by sharing some of my research from the Library of Congress that I conducted in 2018 for the Hispanic Division. I was given a grant by CSUMB to go and research my courses I was teaching. I wanted to teach on labor issues. And the day before I went to DC, I had a poetry reading and my family showed up. And my mom said, you know, your grandpa went to DC once. And I was like, Mom, where is this coming from? Like, how come I don't know this? And she's like, yeah, he went there in the 60s to go talk to Congress. And I was like, okay. And she was like, oh, and a lady came from Berkeley and took pictures of us and published a book. And I was like, why? I mean, all the stories we get as children in a Latino family, I mean, ghost stories, all the stories about your cousins coming back from the dead, like everything happening. Never did I get the story that my grandfather had gone to Congress to yell at them, basically, in Spanish, because he did not want to speak English. So in 1969, my grandfather went to Congress and he told them that the California state budget didn't have any money for migrant laborers to have health benefits. That we had more money in funding for seeing eye dogs than we did for migrant workers. And this is in the Central Coast and also San Benito County, which is where I'm from. This is after my grandfather's 3 children died in infancy of malnutrition. My grandmother did not have enough in her body to feed her children, so they died very young. The first child who died, actually, my grandfather was in Texas, and they weren't allowed to go to the doctor, but a clinic doctor took them in the middle of the night and then handed my grandfather his firstborn son in a brown paper bag and told him to go bury him in the cemetery before anyone saw. So that's where my research came. I was supposed to research for the university. They gave me a grant. I changed my plans. No one noticed. So then it was my task to try and find this book, which you know I found it. I was at the Library of Congress for a week. I had 3 amazing Latina librarians working with me. I researched everything I could: labor, Chicano, civil rights, Cesar Chavez, San Benito County, everything I could. And the really unfortunate and scary thing that happened, this is in 2018, is one of the Latina librarians said, you know, you might want to change your search words. And I've been a researcher for years, and I was like, okay. She says, try the term illegal worker, try the term alien worker, try the term wetback. After I used those terms, my searches went from hundreds of thousands down to enough for me to find the book. For 3 days straight, I stayed in the Library of Congress and had stacks of books come to me that were somewhat like this one. There was a genre in the 1970s of sort of very privileged photographer students from universities going out to ghettos, going out to urban spaces and taking photos of children and families, and then publishing books on these children and families. And oftentimes they did not name the children or families, they did not place the locations, they left a lot of information out. And so I found very quickly that although my mom, there was a book published about my family, the names had been changed, there was no location information, and all I had was my mom's memory of, she said, the lady made us run down Park Hill over and over again so she could get pictures of us running down Park Hill. And so I only had a picture in my head. I knew where it was supposed to be, and I went through pages and pages and pages of books trying to find this photo. This is my family. This is, I recognize my mother here and my uncle and my other tias and tios. And that's Park Hill and Hollister. And it was funny because I had this feeling when they brought the last stack in, I felt like I saw this little thin book, and it was called 7 Chicano Migrant Profiles. And I thought, it feels like that's the one. But I had like 10 other books to go through. So I'm very diligent. So I made sure I went through everything. Even though my ancestors or something was telling me that it's there. And I turned the page and I found that picture, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I found it. And then the next photo to confirm it is this. And it says Hollister Canning Company, and my family is from Hollister. So, so I had found it out of 15,000 entries, countless hours of work, and it was a really exciting moment. And then I texted my family, and and sent them all the links on Amazon. And I don't know if you know, I think we know that once something starts getting popular on Amazon, the price starts going up. And so my last cousin, to get the link, had to pay $125 to get her book. Yes, yes. So they started off very cheap, but at the end they were not cheap. But we did buy them all out. So the family has their copies. So I'm actually going to read to you the story that was published. This woman, this was my aunt at 12 years old. So this woman took audio recording of all the children and then published the photos. I have a lot of problems with that in lots of ways, giving the stories of children and telling the stories of families without proper consent. And also, I mean, this was published by Random House. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good publisher. So I don't remember my family getting any compensation and or getting a copy of the book at all. So, but anyway, I am working to get copyrights of the photos, as I'd like to publish the rest of the profiles and try and find other families who are in here so that they can have access to the photos of their family members. So they changed the names, and I'm just going to read it to you. This is from my 12-year-old aunt's perspective in the 1960s. I am Estrella Delgado, soon to be 12 years old. There was supposed to be 13 in our family, but there is 3 dead. One died when we were still in Texas. She was very small. I don't know from what she died. My mother didn't tell me. The other one died because she would have been paralyzed. They gave her a shot for something, but she died. Then my other sister, when she was tiny, and she died. Now we live in California all the time, and we go to grade school when we are finished picking in September. I go to a lot of dances at the American Legions, but my sister takes me because they're older. I like the boys, they're cute. Mostly I dream about getting married. After I get married, I want to go on a trip with my husband to Mexico. The youngest baby is 2, and I have to help take care of him. My older sisters take care of the other kids when my mom is working. I don't like to change diapers. But I have to learn because when I grow up, I'm going to have a husband. I don't want to have so many kids like my mother, too much to take care of. She has to cook a lot of food. Once in a while, there's not enough money to buy all of the food, like in the winter when there is no crops. She cooks a lot of delicious things: soups, enchiladas, corn, beans, tortillas, and tacos. In the morning, I have eggs and beans and coffee. I eat too many candies, but they have a clinic in my town, and now I go to the dentist, and even sometimes I go to the doctor for a shot. I sleep with my sister. She's a fat one. Fat phobia, it's a thing. We tell her to go on a diet, but she don't want to. One day, she didn't eat very much, and she said to her mother, "Mama, have I got skinny?" And my mother says, "You can't get skinny in one day." When we eat beans, she eats the most and then gets more. I have a best friend, Cecilia. On Sundays, we do not pick in the orchard, and we play with the other children. We go to church, and we hear the priest praying in Spanish. Sometimes we all visit Cecilia's father's grave. Her brothers and sisters come too because he's buried near their house. One night, he got drunk, and somebody hit him and broke his head, and he died in a hospital. We buy our clothes in San Jose or Hollister. My father doesn't like to go to the flea markets where you buy clothes cheap. One time he took us downtown and he bought paintings on velvet of President Kennedy and his brother Robert, and one of Martin Luther King, the man who helped the Negro people. And my mother said, "Where did you get all the money for these paintings?" And my father said, "These men have tried to help poor people and they will hang in my house." My oldest sister, she's married, and I'm going to be an aunt of 2 kids because she's going to have another one. Her husband is a rancher because his father owns a ranch and he works there. I don't want to get married right now. I'd rather have my fun. When my father loses his temper, he hits us and it hurts. He only loses his temper when he drinks too much. Sometimes I get mad and I want to run away, but I'm afraid to. I'd rather be home with my family. My mother knows a little English and can talk it, and my father knows a little bit, but can't talk it. Most of the time, he works on the tomato picking machine or at the cannery. We have ducks and chickens and a dog that bites. All of the children, me and Junior, give my mother and my father the most trouble. Junior is the meanest. He has the same name as my father. Sometimes I give a lot of trouble. I'm so mean to my sisters, but Junior, he scratches. My mother tells him to cut his nails, but he doesn't want to. And my sister, Dolores, she scratches too. I wish she would just get married already. But my mother is busy working in the cannery, and she doesn't have time to help Dolores marry. I wish I could be like an angel, but my father says I'm like the devil, and he calls us names like fly or prune or bee. But when you have many brothers or sisters and they call you a name, you can always go to another one. Once I became very ill, and my mother, she did not know what was wrong with me. It was a San Joaquin fever, and you ache, you ache. They took me to the doctor and gave me 20 shots. The doctor told my mother that I was very lucky. If you're older, you can die from this. In the night, I feel lonely. I get sick in the night. Even though I'm sleeping with my sister, I cry in the night. I always go and cry to my mother and tell her I can't sleep. She gives me an aspirin for my headache because I get a lot of headaches. I cry too much. I only cry at night. "Do you like me, Mama?" I said. "I don't like you anymore because you keep crying." Then I can't fall asleep. I feel like nobody's there. That's it. I'll pass this around. You guys can take a look. I just make sure I get it back. It's $125 on Amazon. So that's that work, and then I'm just gonna, this is my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather was instrumental in getting the Health Foundation in San Benito County established so that migrant workers could have access to health care. And this is my family in the mid-19s, well, I guess it would be late 70s, probably right before the 80s. So a lot of girls, beautiful women. And that's my mom. My mom had me when she was 17 years old, and that's me and my daughter. So That's a little bit of us. Thank you for listening to that. So now I'm going to move forward into my poetry, which is, I guess I have an affinity with Robinson Jeffers, always have. I feel like I'm often a romantic stuck in a modern world, as I feel like Robinson Jeffers was a romantic stuck in a modern world. I write a lot about love, but because it's a modern world, there's also cell phones and other things involved. My latest collection is called Space Jump from the Heavenly Palace. I was standing at Marina State Beach with a lover and watching the darkness of a new moon, and suddenly something fell out of the sky, and I was like, are we gonna die? Because it just kept coming, and it wasn't a, you see a falling star, it's a doop. No, this was, it kept coming, and I was like, what the fuck is that? So then I went home, and the nerd that I am and all my nerd friends got together, and everyone was like, what was that? What just fell into you? It was a piece of the Chinese space station called the Heavenly Palace in English, in Chinese, Tiangong. And I spent 3 years in China where I taught creative writing and poetry in the English department at Sun Yat-sen University, and I launched creative writing programs in English and worked with the United States Consulate. And I have never written about China because I didn't speak the language. It was not my culture. I didn't know how to talk about that perspective. I didn't want to do any injustices to anyone that was there. So I've sort of kept mostly silent about my work in China. But I felt like this was a moment for me to write a new book. So that's this book. So it's sort of the only China writing I'll do, which is not much about China. Here we go. It isn't that the octagon gets in the way of my body. It's that you are just far enough away to be something like a planet. All of my desires are tempered by time and elementals like laundry and deadlines. All I want to do is drive to you, silently enter your bedroom, and give you all of my earthly blessings, my endlessness, my empty. Our escape into ourselves is revolution. Our survival speaks. I am not a witch or a revolutionary. I am just a poor brown woman who found you amongst the dying embers of this moon. Come with me to the river. The body of body and body of water and bodies and body is like all the space between us, time that cannot be held. Don't fret, love. Just breathe, love. If you breathe, just breathe. Breathe, love. If you breathe through the cold, love, it's like the upswing of a syllable, sometimes unplanned, but ever everything. I am a galactic nomad, my darling. In another life, we could have been. Our house would have been. We would enter and exit rooms together and not. Our time was greens and blues, coffers with black tea and conchas. But this space-time continuum dumped itself onto us, and we have been in chaos. How is it when I'm with you, I'm not in chaos? There's no undoing the thing about time, you know. It will go, and so will we. And on this sandy memory, I'll always see you, something like a perfect blue sky through a wide-leaved ornamental tree. I thought time would move me, stir this cuerpo. But even in the solitude of this spaceship, in the minutia of inventory, in the empty of this cargo bay, I think of you. How can you exist when I am here alone? All of this ocean between us, sharp as steel glass breakers, chromatic swell, no shore. A veces, yes, sometimes you're so bright, I can't tell the difference between the sky and the rows of plastic over dirt in Salinas. Have they forgotten? We are also people. This one is for Jeffers. Someday you must live sleepless like me, so you can see the way the ocean granite lights up in the early morning moon. And how do I explain the pattern of the redwood sorrel, their ethereal purple petals? I live beyond this galaxy. I cannot walk a path without you on my mind, without your eyes, the same color as the displaced mud, mezclada con mica, the way my whole self slips into your mouth, like toes in creek dreg. This breeze is for you. The collapse is coming. So yeah, love poems. Love poems and nature. This is called Time and Temper. Coyote bush and chaparral with sunlight, soft sagebrush and streams of mica. Now I know it isn't you, it's me, it's my beaming self. I would have loved you for 1,000 lifetimes, but I'm back now, boots on solid ground. No more agony with every nothing nor wretched desperation over all the places you said we'd see. Your golden mouth lies. Oh, but the licking. And so this is what life does. It dulls the senses. It says, Rachelle, you're a person, not a fire, not a star, not an endless, not a void of pain and sorrow and struggle and brick walls. And you're just a man I could have loved. With everything a woman like me has, with voltas and with verbs. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. How am I on time? Okay. I'll keep going. Stop me if you need to stop me. Thanks. I left the cosmic coastline and came to form just south of Monterey. I thought I'd leave the cosmic coastline and come to form, but I was pulled back by the native thistle, the browning leaves, and the pelicans who seem almost communal. I know once I leave this shore what I face. Maria Juarez dead at 18 months from a preventable respiratory illness. A baby boy denied a diaper because Border Patrol says he's too old to have one. We are ancient, the sun god and the poet, and so we isolate. Come to the river with me is sound. This place where love is sound is sound. Form with me, the rock facing north is form. Divide hard dirt is form. Cry at the pebbled shore is sound. Me in my most natural form is form. Me in the crook of your arm is form. I admit it. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of reality. Let's see. This one is about, I think, somewhat about Marina, where I live, where I feel very privileged to live in Monterey. Growing up in Hollister, Monterey was always the place we went to have a nice time on the weekends. And I told my mom one day, I said, I'm going to live there someday. And she says, it's really expensive to live there. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So I'm here. I did it. In this light, all things brown are more beautiful. In this light, all things brown are more beautiful, as if our sadness and beauty is measured by glassy gray skies against chronic ocean. And the dunes are greener, and the yellows of the turned fields are more yellow, and even the invasive ice plant, thick with purloined limbs, shimmer in this morning's blessings. My sorrow exists for me to exist. My sorrow exists for me to exist. My sorrow exists for me to exist. The barracks with boarded windows are weathered and will be torn down soon. Someday, they will build new homes over my body, and the ghost of you will only exist in text and sky. But I loved you for a time, and you burned every synapse, and my feet hurt. But even limbs are memories. You are not a god. That is to say, I don't have to burn my body to receive you. There's no falling because we do not edge on the silver of stars or mirror the dark empty of they who tore me limb from limb and they for whom all the candles succumb. I lived in the chaos of that thing gods are good at, but not you. I saw the miner's lettuce today and the bush lupine. I thought I had nothing to give you, but you gave me this poem. This thing that I thought was dead, this thing that even the stars could not supplicate. One more? Okay, got it. All right, I'm going to finish with a poem called La Llorona. In various Latin cultures, there is a version of La Llorona. It's a woman who cries by bodies of water. Some of the mythologies say that she drowned her babies. That's what the main point of the story is. And some of the mythologies say that she did it because of a scorned lover, something like that. I don't like that version. I'm too much of a feminist to believe that a woman would kill her babies over a man. That sounds ridiculous to me. So the mythological version that I like is that she was an indigenous woman who saw Hernan Cortés coming in and saw the colonizers and saw the future and decided that it was better to kill her babies than to have them live in slavery. So this is a La Llorona. We used to be wolves. Then they blamed Malinche for our mixed up shit. I know why she drowned her babies. Who would wish a life in cages of girls who only know where they are by the design of stucco in the ceilings? Babies passed around at Disneyland. Girls face down dead in the desert. Daughters living under the bodies of men. Trapped mothers forced to police skirts. What did she hear when the she-wolf grabbed her babies and said, "I love you, so I will kill you"? The sound of a horse, the breaking of a branch, was it all in her head? Who am I to judge the woman who cries for her children by bodies of water? Tell me what to do. The rules of my culture are eaten by other cultures, and all of the cultures are ruled by men. Cry to me, Llorona. How do I keep her from drowning? Thank you. Oh, no. Am I sticking around up here? Yeah. Sure. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, sure. Perfect.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we have a few minutes for Q&A. If folks have any questions that they'd love to get some perspective on.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the grant and the residency in France.
Oh, yes, yeah.
How do you plan to spend your time there? What's your focus?
Well, someone asked if I have any new writing coming out. I have a 7-year-old and 160 students, and this gig, plus I do dance and other things. So writing, actually this book was written on Instagram, so 2 weeks in France with a private chef in a chateau in the middle of nowhere sounds like I don't give a fuck what I do. Yeah.
How did you decide, or when did you decide that you were a poet and you wanted to write? It's a hard path to follow.
Yeah, yeah. So language was always something that was happening, obviously, in our families, but because of language barriers and issues of illiteracy in my family, a lot of first-generation immigrants. Well, I'm not first generation. My family, we're Apache, but anyway, first generation English speakers have trouble with language and mixing. We had a lot of Spanglish happening. And so from an early age, I was very interested in how language worked and how it didn't work and how it failed and how it was successful. And then I was just very good. My mom took me to the libraries all the time, and I was just very good at reading and writing. And then when I went to San Jose State, one of the professors said, you're a really great poet. And then I said, well, what can I do with that? And, he was just like, well, you could be a teacher. And I was like, that sounds good. And I was like, well, how much of a teacher? He's like, you could be a professor. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do that then. I had no clue what the path was, but, I just kept following it. And I fell in love with poetry from then on. And found it very easy, whereas a lot of my classmates found it very difficult. I think growing up in Christianity, you learn about the Bible and how to interpret all the things in all of the ways. And so interpretation seemed very simple, whereas everyone else was like, I don't know what it's saying. I was like, oh, that's saying this. So I just loved it. And I think I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And I think that when you are that, it's hard to see where anything leads. So I didn't think about the future when I started it, other than to think, well, what can I be? And so that's what led me to poetry. But also, it's also important to remember that poetry is an oral tradition, and I come from a very long line of oral traditions. And so it's the way that we pass on stories. I mean, even whales have migration stories. So yeah. Other questions?
One more.
Here. Do I have bilingual poems? So in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan told my parents that speaking Spanish in the home would make me confused. And so my parents stopped speaking Spanish in the home when I was a child. So my Spanish was completely deleted. I have Spanglish. A lot of my Spanish is dialectical, so it's like broken Spanish. I always forget the term, but there's a bilingualism where you can understand everything in Spanish, but you cannot speak it or you don't speak it. So that's what I have. But so my poems play with Spanglish, really. But I'm proud to say that my daughter is going to the Dual Language Academy in Monterey, and she speaks better Spanish and reads in Spanish and English at 7 years old, better than I did. So I'm trying to undo that damage that was done to my family and to me. So, yeah. Okay. One more.
Last question.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts about poetry read from the page versus spoken.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I teach poetry, I tell students, yes, you can write on the page. You should inhabit the entire page. If a painter has a paintbrush and a canvas and all the colors, we only have white space and text. That's what we have. So use it, right? But I am in the vein of an amazing writer from the 1960s, Entozaki Shange, who wrote the choreo poem called For Colored Girls. And she believed that poetry does not exist only on the page, it should exist on the body. And that in the act of speaking and creating from the body, we create a community, and that communal space is where poetry is supposed to be. So although I think the poetry on the page is lovely, I find it a little bit boring when it just sits on the page. And I definitely challenge my students to speak it out loud, think about the sound, think about the syllabic count, think about the musicality, and figure out how it exists in the world, yeah.
Thank you for taking your poems off the page for us.
We have another question.
Last question.
Okay.
Your longest running poetry radio show, are those available on YouTube?
Those archives are on SoundCloud. SoundCloud, yeah, and there's a link on my website. Yeah, it was 2015 to my producer died during COVID. I was at a KKUP Cupertino 91.5 FM. Yeah, so they're there.
Great.
Yeah, and I can just go to my website and I can send you the link too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Danny, did you have a few final words?
Yeah, great. John, thank you so much for that. And maybe one more round of applause for Rachelle. It was amazing. I was reflecting a little bit as Rachelle was talking about, her research and things like that. And it's like we kind of think about a poet like as, of course, someone who's writing, who's creating, words on a page, but then there's so much like grounded context and credibility behind you, and that's so inspirational. And that, you're just like, poetry is like it's almost like an endpoint to what you've done, and that's really inspirational. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Yeah, we can definitely give her a round of applause. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you next month. I think our next month is going to be April 12th, so like a little bit earlier. Kind of figuring that out right now with a potential speaker who has not completely confirmed yet. So I'm working on that. She is amazing, and she is local, and she is someone that you are probably very familiar with, but I'm not able to confirm completely yet. So very soon, and we'll send that out over our many email channels. Thank you so much, Rachelle. That was incredible. Thank you for showing up today. All right, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. All right, thank you, John.